She was just an old woman in their eyes, until they learned her last name. The store manager's smirk faded the moment she reached for her wallet. But by then, the damage was already done. What would you do if your mother was treated like this? Tell us in the comments and subscribe for more powerful stories that reveal the truth behind appearances. It was a rainy afternoon in Chicago when Michael Jordan's mother, Dolores, quietly stepped into a high-end boutique on Michigan Avenue. She wore a simple tan overcoat, her hair neatly tucked in a scarf, and her shoes, though clean, carried the creases of many long walks. The store was nearly empty. A young woman at the counter glanced up, her eyes scanning Dolores from head to toe. "Can I help you?" she asked, but not with warmth. It was the tone used for people who, in her mind, did not belong here. Dolores smiled softly. "Yes, I was looking for a gift. Something elegant." The clerk raised an eyebrow. "Our pieces start at $2,000, she said, already turning away. "You may want to try the outlet on Fifth." Dolores looked confused but polite. "This is for my son. He is, well, it needs to be special." That was the moment everything shifted. The clerk smirked and motioned to another associate nearby. Together they exchanged quiet giggles behind the register. One of them whispered loud enough for Dolores to hear, "She thinks she can afford that?" Dolores's hands trembled slightly as she picked up a velvet-lined box. She was about to say something, but stopped. Instead, she calmly placed the item back down. "Thank you," she said with a grace that confused them. But what happened when she walked out that door would leave the whole store in shock. The next morning, that same boutique opened its doors just like any other day. The two clerks from yesterday, still laughing about the confused old lady who had wandered in, were sipping their overpriced lattes behind the counter when a black SUV pulled up to the curb. Out stepped a man in a crisp black suit, followed by two more, and then another. Then came the car that silenced everything. A gleaming red Rolls-Royce Phantom slid into view and stopped directly in front of the glass doors. The engine purred like a lion ready to roar. The boutique manager, now alert, straightened her blazer and peered out. A chauffeur stepped out, walked to the rear door, and opened it slowly. He extended his hand, and out stepped Michael Jordan. Not a look-alike, not a body double, the man himself, standing tall, wearing a charcoal overcoat and deep expression. Behind him, Dolores. She was no longer wearing her tan coat. Today she wore a soft gray cashmere shawl and the quiet confidence of a woman who had seen the world try to judge her 1,000 times and fail every single time. The manager's mouth fell open. The two clerks nearly dropped their cups. Michael walked inside first, silent, powerful. Every step echoed like a drumbeat of justice. Dolores followed, eyes calm but firm. "Yesterday," Michael began, "you made a mistake." His voice was even, no yelling, no theatrics. "You judge this woman," he said, pointing gently to his mother, "not by her words, not by her character, but by her shoes and her skin." The entire store froze. Even the music seemed to cut off. "She taught me everything I know," he continued. "Discipline, integrity, grace. And yesterday, she taught you a lesson too," without saying a word. He then pulled out a black leather checkbook and placed it on the counter. "I was going to buy 10 custom watches for my foundation gala from this store. That deal is off the table now." Then he turned to his mother. "Let us go somewhere you are respected, Mom." Dolores nodded. No smile, just a calm nod. The power of dignity and silence. As they walked out, all three store staff stood frozen. The manager tried to speak, but nothing came out. It was not just about luxury anymore. It was about respect. And the price they paid for underestimating the wrong woman was far greater than any watch in their display. Hours after Michael and Dolores left the boutique, the silence they left behind still echoed in the store's marble floors and glass displays. The staff had not said much. They just stood there, trying to make sense of what had happened. How a simple judgment, made in seconds, had just cost them not only a massive sale, but also their dignity. Later that afternoon, a security camera clip leaked online. Someone from the store had tried to delete it, but not before a customer had recorded the entire exchange between Dolores and the staff the day before. It began with her entrance, then the disinterest, then the line that caught fire across the internet. Honey, I do not think this store carries anything affordable enough for you. The video hit social media like lightning. By sunset, it had 3.6 million views. Hashtags like number Jordan Justice, number Respect Dolores, and number Luxury for All were trending. Influencers, athletes, civil rights advocates, even celebrities began reposting it with their own captions. Never underestimate grace. It always wins. Every mother deserves respect, especially one who raised Michael Jordan. Racism in retail is still real. Watch this. The backlash came fast. People started posting negative reviews of the boutique, flooding its pages with angry comments. Protesters showed up outside, holding signs that read, "Not her money, not our business," and "You judged a legend's mother." But Dolores, she stayed silent. She did not need to say anything. That video, her calm, her poise, her quiet exit, spoke louder than any response she could have posted. And inside the boutique, the manager was finally realizing that the true value of a customer is not measured in dollars, but in how you treat them when no one is watching. The next morning, the boutique owner, Mr. Langston, an older man known for his sharp suits and even sharper business instincts, stepped into the store for the first time in weeks. He had been traveling in Europe, expanding his brand into Paris, but this incident brought him home overnight. As he entered, the atmosphere was heavy. Employees avoided eye contact, and the store manager, Michelle, the same woman who had dismissed Dolores, stood pale, eyes locked on the floor. He did not shout. He did not need to. He walked straight to the counter, placed his briefcase down, and pulled up the viral video on his phone. The sound played aloud in the store. "Honey, I do not think this store carries anything affordable enough for you." He paused it, lifted his eyes. "Do you know," he said slowly, "what the worst part of this is?" Michelle nodded silently, as if preparing herself for the inevitable firing. But Mr. Langston leaned forward, voice low and cutting. "It is not just that you insulted a woman, it is that you insulted Michael Jordan's mother. Do you understand what you have done to our name?" The silence in the store was more deafening than before. "You judged a woman by her outfit, by her skin, by your assumption of her worth," he continued, "and in doing so you cost us millions. But worse, you made us villains." Michelle finally spoke, trembling. I did not know who she was." "You were not supposed to," he snapped. "You were supposed to treat her with respect anyway." Then in front of the staff, he turned, picked up the store phone, and made a call. "Yes, get me Michael Jordan's representative. I want to speak to his mother. Immediately." He hung up, then looked at everyone. "We are not just fixing this. We are owning this." And for the first time, Michelle realized redemption might still be possible, but only if it started with accountability. The following day, Dolores Jordan received a personal invitation, handwritten, delivered by a suited courier, to return to the very same boutique. At first, she hesitated. Why would she walk back into the place where she had been belittled? But something inside her, the same fire that raised a champion like Michael, told her this was not about clothes anymore. It was about dignity. It was about standing tall, not just for herself, but for every woman who had been silently turned away. So she arrived. This time the door was open for her. A red carpet lay rolled from the sidewalk to the boutique floor. Customers had been cleared for the day. Press cameras were parked discreetly across the street, catching glimpses of the moment. Inside, Mr. Langston stood waiting, not in front of her, but beside a display that read in bold letters, "The Dolores Collection, inspired by strength." Next to it, mannequins dressed in pieces she had admired the first time, now labeled in her name. He extended a hand. "I owe you more than an apology. I owe you a platform," he said, his voice calm but steady. "Because when we listen instead of judge, we all win." Dolores glanced around. Michelle was nowhere to be seen. But the real twist came when Mr. Langston motioned to a velvet curtain. Behind it stood 3 young black fashion students. He introduced them. "These women will be designing with you. You inspired more than outrage. You sparked change." Dolores smiled, softly, deeply. Not because she was being honored, but because her pain had been turned into purpose. The entire room knew. This was more than a fashion story. This was a reckoning, a rewriting. And for the first time in years, the luxury world felt a little more just. As Dolores Jordan stepped outside, the sun bathed her in a soft golden light. A crowd had gathered. Neighbors, journalists, curious shoppers. But they were not shouting or pushing. They were clapping. Not for her fame, but for her courage. Across the street, someone held up a handwritten sign, "We see you, Mrs. Jordan." Reporters rushed forward, asking how she felt. Dolores paused, looked directly into the camera, and said, "I was not looking for attention. I was looking for respect. And I hope today reminds everyone that kindness is free, judgment is costly." As she walked away, a young girl tugged at her sleeve and whispered, "I want to be like you." Dolores smiled, bent down, and said, "Then be better. Be braver. Never let them tell you who you are before you get to show them." That moment went viral, not because of fame, not because of fashion, but because truth carries weight. And this time the world listened. What started as humiliation ended in history, and as Dolores disappeared into a waiting car, the store behind her began to change, not just in name, but in heart. If this story touched you, do not forget to like, subscribe, and share it with someone who needs to be reminded of their worth.